While we outside of Japan are anxiously awaiting for prismatic evolution, this is old news in Japan. They are currently waiting for the upcoming Battle Partner set, which is going to be our Journey Together set outside of Japan. They've recently revealed a new round of cards, and these look awesome. I'm Jeff from InThirdPerson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's look at the latest round of cards from Battle Partners. First up is Hop's Zacian EX. It is a basic metal attacker with 230 HP, and it's got two awesome attacks. Close Cleave for 1 colorless energy does 30 damage, and also does 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. 30 doesn't seem like a lot, but it's going to be enough to take out the new Badoo that's coming out in Prismatic Evolution that has that item lock attack, so being able to take that out with just 1 energy, fantastic. And get a little bit of bench sniping in there as well. On top of that, we have the attack Brave Slash, where for 3 metal and a colorless, does 240 damage, and you can't use Brave Slash next turn. 240 is a very nice number. You're pretty much taking out every big basic in the game, all the way up to Raging Bolt. Yes, you can't take out Blood Moon Ursaluna, but you are still doing very good damage and taking one-hit KOs on many big basic multi-prize Pokemon. Now, getting the energy cost there covered, it's a little high, but there are going to be ways of covering that. One of those could be Matang from Temporal Forces. Yes, it's a stage 1, but it does have that Metal Maker ability where you can look at the top 4 cards of your deck and attach any basic metal energy you find there and put it onto your Pokemon in any way that you like. This card is currently not being played because of Kyurem and Regidrago decks, but this could see a comeback once Kyurem's probably gonna go away once rotation happens because Regidrago won't be there and Colress's Experiment won't be there either. Yes, there's another Colress card, but I think that's going to be way less useful, and Kyurem will probably chill out for a while and open the door for Matang to possibly come back as viable metal energy acceleration. Otherwise, I think the better fit here could actually be Archaludon EX, where when you evolve up to Archaludon EX, you can accelerate 2 metal energy from your discard pile and attach them to your metal Pokemon in any way you like. Covering 2 here is very nice, getting you halfway there. Maybe 2 Archaludons will cover the whole thing. You also have attach from hand, and there's another thing that actually makes this a little easier to power up that we'll talk about in a second. So Brave Slash for 240, very solid numbers there. Things get very spicy once you talk about the other Hop Pokemon and support. For example, Hop Snorlax is a big basic with 150 HP, and it's got the ability Big Belly, where the attacks of your Hop's Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Now keep in mind, it does state right there the effect of Big Belly doesn't stack, so you can't just throw down 4 Snorlaxes and get a 120 damage boost. It doesn't end there though, because we have the new Postwick Stadium where the attacks of Hop's Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, do 30 more damage to the opponent's active Pokemon. So now we've got another way of boosting damage on Hop's attacks, and it doesn't stop there either, because not only that, we have a new Hop's Choice Band where your attack costs cost 1 energy less and does 30 damage to your, additional 30 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So now we have a way of doing upwards of an extra 90 damage while also reducing attack cost by 1. So if we go look back at Zacian EX plus all of these damage modifiers, the first attack can now do 120 damage for 1 energy, and that's going to be really good numbers for taking out a lot of those basic Pokemon, assuming you can get all of this in play on that turn 1 going second. The second attack, though, becomes absolutely nuts, where 240 plus 90, 330, you're able to one-hit KO a Charizard EX at that point. And it's a lot. You're asking a lot. You have to get 4 energy on there. You've got to get all of the, a tool, a stadium, and a Pokemon, an additional Pokemon in play. But I do think it's possible. And even if you don't get all of those pieces all the time, being able to swing for those other breakpoints, the 270, 300, is still going to be relevant in a lot of different matchups. So I do love the potential of Hop's Zacian EX. Zacian's not the only attacker coming to Hop's deck. We also have Hop's Cramorant, which is a colorless Pokemon with 110 HP, and for 1 colorless energy, Fickle Spit does 120 damage, but if your opponent doesn't have exactly 3 to 4 prize cards remaining, this attack does nothing. An attacker that only works for the middle third of the game is awkward, but 120 damage does help you take out some basic Pokemon, some smaller evolution Pokemon. And once we add the damage modifiers in there as well, another 90 damage for upwards of 210 for 0 energy, you are going to be taking out the smaller support Pokemon like a Squawkabilly. I was going to say Lumineon, but that rotates by the time this card comes out. A Teal Mask Ogerpon is going to get cut down by a Hop's Cramorant for 0 energy. And this could be a very cool way of skewing the prize race. Tier 4 over in Japan, one of the biggest Pokemon TCG content creators in Japan just dropped this proof of concept list for a Zacian EX deck, and we can see here they've got 3 copies of Zacian EX, and they're opting for the Matang line, a 4/4 line, very thick, with the Buddy Poffins to help get those in play. I like that. We've got a couple of Snorlax in there for the damage boost. We also have 3 copies of Hop's Band, as well as 3 copies of the Stadium. This looks like a really solid list overall. I would look to bump the bands maybe to 4, but otherwise, really solid starting point for a potential Hop/Zacian list going forward. Hop's Dubwool is not a great attacker, but it has a amazing ability. Challenge Horn. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot. We have seen this ability before. Not too long ago, we had Umbreon VMAX that did the exact same thing, and it was phenomenal. And it definitely saw some play, and I'm certain this will see play as well. And I can see Hop's Dubwool going into decks that aren't Hop decks because that ability is just way too strong. Mamoswine EX is not tied to any specific trainer, but it does have a lot of potential. It is huge with 340 HP, tying it with the highest amount of HP on any Pokemon ever. It has the awesome ability Mammoth Cry, where it lets you search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck, and you're going to need it to help power up the attack Rumbling March. For 2 fighting energy, does 180 damage and 40 more damage for each stage 2 Pokemon on your bench. This has a ton of potential. If you've got 5 stage 2s on your bench, this is going to do 380 damage, 1-hit KOing pretty much everything in the game without any sort of damage modifiers, and that's going to be a very tall order. But getting some other Pokemon out here like a Pidgeot EX seems like an ideal candidate here, and setting up some more Mamoswines. I'm not sure how reliably you're going to be able to get a bunch of stage 2s on the board, but this does have a ton of potential. And even if you don't get the full 5, even if you are putting in 4 or 3 stage 2s in play, this could do absolutely massive damage. And for only 2 energy, it's not that hard to power up. And I'm very curious to see if Mamoswine EX is going to find a footing in the upcoming post-rotation meta. Here's a quick look at the pre-evolutions for Mamoswine. The Piloswine, not really much to talk about there, but the Swinub does have Call for Family as an attack, lets you search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon and put them onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. With this being a very setup-heavy deck, needing a lot of Pokemon setup, that Call for Family attack is awesome. Iono's deck gets a little more support with a new Voltorb and Electrode. I don't think the Electrode is particularly good. The Electric Ball attack is terrible, and its first attack is the one that has potential. Heart Pounding Bomb for 2 lightning energy. You do 100 damage to yourself, and you flip a coin if heads your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out. Yes, there will be some highlight reel plays where you'll knock yourself out and you take out a multi-prize Pokemon and uptrade that way, but it is a very high risk play that is not going to work out all the time, and if it doesn't, then you just knock yourself out while doing nothing to your opponent. And yes, you technically could stay alive. Maybe you put a Hero's Cape on an Electrode for the chance of taking a multi-prize KO while keeping the Electrode alive. I just don't think this is particularly good. But the first attack, or the one attack on the Voltorb, is interesting, where Chain Bolt does 20 damage, plus 20 more damage for each lightning energy attached to your Iono's Pokemon. And the Iono deck as it stands, we have the Belly Bolt, which can accelerate energy from your hand to your Iono's Pokemon. So it doesn't necessarily seem that bad to power this attack up and get some decent damage on there. Now, I don't think you're going to get to one-hit KOing Charizard territory, but taking out basic Pokemon, like basic evolution Pokemon, and maybe even climbing the ladder to take out something like a Squawkabilly could be in the cards as well. But yeah, it does have some potential. The Voltorb does have the chance of being okay. The Electrode, I think, is pretty bad. We do have a new Meowscarada line, with Meowscarada having the Showtime ability, where once during your turn you can use this ability. If this Pokemon's on the bench, you can switch it with your active Pokemon, and I guess you can use it to get the Rising Bloom attack out there, where for 2 colorless energy, if your opponent's active Pokemon is a Pokemon EX, this attack does 90 more damage. It has the same attack cost as a Meowscarada EX, and maybe you could pair them together so that this can give you some sort of single prize attacker. I'm not sure that's going to be enough to save Meowscarada EX from obscurity, and even outside of Meowscarada EX, I'm not sure these cards are strong enough to find a home in the current meta. Exchange Ticket is a very exciting card. After counting your prize cards, shuffle them and put them on the bottom of your deck, then take that many cards from the top of your deck and put them face down as your prize cards. Prizing important pieces is such a annoying part, but important part of the Pokemon TCG. We have had Hisuian Heavy Ball in the past to at least get basic Pokemon out of there, but Exchange Ticket opens the door to get all of those cards out of the prizes and put them back into our deck. Yes, it's going to be at the bottom of our deck, and you're going to have to find ways of fishing those cards out, but in a number of cases where you kind of just need those cards in your deck somewhere and not in your prizes, Exchange Ticket is fantastic for fishing those pieces out. And the consequences are you're going to have to give up some cards along the way. And sometimes people will just do that no problem because the prizes are that important that you kind of don't care what you are putting in. But there are ways of manipulating the top of the deck to get other cards that we don't want in the immediate term into our prizes instead. We have Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking, which lets us pick 2 cards from our deck and put them at the top. Then we could play Exchange Ticket, and at least we know 2 of the cards that we're putting away are things we don't need right away. Academy at Night helps us put a card from our hand back to the top of our deck, at which point then we can play Exchange Ticket, and then one of the 4 cards is one that we don't need. I think this is a card that is going to see a lot of play. I don't think it's going to be a 4 of in any particular deck, but at least 1 copy is going to be in a lot of decks because of how important it can be to get key pieces out of your prizes. Brock's Scouting has 2 effects, and you get to choose one of them. You can either search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon, reveal them and put them into your hand, or search your deck for an evolution Pokemon, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. With the amount of Pokemon search that we have in the format, I don't necessarily think Brock's Scouting is good enough, but I'm also going to assume this is tied to some sort of Brock deck, which we have not seen just yet. So maybe with further context and we see what the Pokemon look like, Brock Scouting could be a good card within the context of a Brock deck if a Brock deck is happening. That's it for this round of cards, but Journey Together / Battle Partners is looking great. I'm really excited for these cards, especially the Zacian, the Hop deck with Zacian. It does call back to an older archetype, Buzzrock, which is very popular in the Sun and Moon era. I actually did not play the game during that time, but I have no nostalgia for that archetype. But just looking on Twitter, there's a ton of players who have been playing since those days that are really excited to see that archetype back. And just me as a newer player, I started playing in the Sword and Shield era, and looking at those cards, I think it looks like a really fun and strong archetype for the future. But for now, I gotta get going. Thank you so much for watching. Which of these cards do you think has the most potential? Let me know in the comments of this video. But for now, I gotta get going. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at In Third Person. You can find me on Twitch at In Third Person, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.